have to watch a clock. I don't even have to watch a clock. I don't even have to watch a clock.
Hello, welcome to Bold Moves Podcast. This is the host, Mandie Brice, and I am super excited to share episode 159 with you. Today, I am chatting with the author of Accidental Paleo, where she is just full of so many surprises. Some of you may be surprised that you can be a paleo vegetarian, but she actually wrote a cookbook of vegetarian paleo recipes. And if you'd like to win that, plus some other Primal Kitchen goodies, stay tuned to the end of the show because I will be sharing that. But we talked about Columbo and Lululemon and meditation and how Type A personalities should give time for rest and play, as well as how she became an accidental paleo person after almost becoming a lawyer and a pastry chef. I don't want to give it all away for you, but without further ado, here is Lauren Lobley and her amazing story. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bold Moves Podcast. I am with Lauren Lobley, who has a very interesting story of a pretty dynamic career change. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So obviously we're called Bold Moves and it's all about people who have made bold moves. That's why you're here. Why don't you share a little bit of your story and some of the bold moves you've made in your life?
Oh dear, do we have 5 hours? No, I'm just kidding.
The listeners are like, oh boy, settling in. Make sure
No. I have learned to be succinct and I will try to apply that here through my excitement. Let's start where I am now. I am in Malibu, California, where I have just published my first cookbook called The Accidental Paleo, and it's all vegetarian paleo recipes. And I have a 2-year-old daughter. I'm married to the love of my life, and we own and operate a yoga studio here in Malibu. So that's where I am now, and I'm only here because of some very bold moves that I made. And I guess the biggest one would be I'm actually Canadian. I'm from Montreal.
Okay.
And it's not easy for Canadians to just pick up and move to the States. There's some visa things that need to happen. And I used to work for a company called Lululemon, which I'm sure almost every single person, if not every single person listening, knows. And I was working for them in Montreal in 2006. And after a few years, I just realized I wanted to move to Los Angeles. I went to visit a friend and I was like, what is this magical place? I need to live here. And so I asked Lululemon if they would transfer me and sponsor a visa and sponsor my move. And they were like, maybe. And I just kept persisting until finally, after 4 months, they relented and they moved me. So I moved to LA in 2008.
Okay.
And then bold move number 2 is that after another 2 years at Lululemon, I decided that I was going to make a switch from stretchy yoga pants to culinary school and with visions of having my own bakery.
Okay, so filling the yoga pants.
Yes, because they're stretchy, so you need to give them a reason to be stretchy.
I'm a big fan of the Wonder Under myself, so.
Mm-hmm. I am wearing the Wonder Unders right now, actually.
I almost always am, but it's too hot today.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, it's like a hazard of ever being an employee of Lululemon that you're like, you never wear normal pants again, and when you do, you're like, what?
Why do people do this?
Yeah, why? So I went to culinary school and I wrote a business plan and I was going to open this bakery, and I moved back to Los Angeles and I got a job with Duff Goldman, the guy from the Food Network who had Ace of Cakes, the cake show, as his head baker. And I was like, this is great. And then I was like, but I feel really gross. I do not feel good eating all of these pastries. And, when I'm not in the bakery, I'm outside running the trails with my husband and running a yoga studio and practicing. So I boldly shifted, threw away the business plan, and decided that I was going to dedicate my life to making healthy food taste good. And that is what I have been doing ever since.
All right.
Yeah.
So I assume that your definition of healthy, because I know there's a wide range of people with different opinions, but since your book's called Accidental Paleo,
Hmm.
I'm guessing that that is kind of a cornerstone around how you choose to define healthy. Can you tell me a little more about that? Because that's pretty much the opposite of pastries.
It's totally the opposite of pastries, and also not, because the pastry chef sugar addict in me was like, there's got to be a way to make healthy desserts that you can
Sure.
eat and satisfy that craving without feeling guilty. So the way the cookbook is vegetarian paleo recipes, which is basically a limited amount of grains. This is no meat, some eggs, a limited amount of legumes, mostly vegetables, nuts, seeds, and a little bit
Sure.
of fruit. So, but really, whether you're paleo or vegetarian or vegan or pescatarian or whatever you are, I really feel like the definition of health and healthy eating is what your body tells you that it wants.
Sure.
Because the truth is, your body is always talking to you.
Right.
And whether it's a stomach ache or it's brain fog or it's, I don't know, achy joints or whatever, it's always talking to you. Mm-hmm. So where I eat, yes, this mostly vegetarian paleo diet, I leave room for, sometimes legumes don't work for me, so I don't use those recipes for a little while. Or
Sure.
sometimes I'm in Italy and there's gelato and I do have dairy, I think there's room for, not error, but there's just room to
Wiggle room.
Yes, thank you. I'm having trouble finding my words.
That happens to the best of us sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you brought up dairy and gelato, because when I think of pastries, I of course think of tons of butter. Where does that fit in with your recipes and how you eat? Like, is it Kerrygold only, or ghee, or butter doesn't work for you so you stay away, or how does that fit in?
That's a great question. I actually don't eat butter anymore. I just kind of got away from it because in pastry school it was like croissants, and like my pastry teacher was third generation pastry chef from Marseille, France. So it was all about butter, and his hands were always like super soft because they were always in butter.
Right.
My butter is coconut oil.
Okay.
Coconut milk, cacao butter, all of those kinds of things. And then nuts, cashews, macadamia nuts. I use those as the base for cheesecakes and puddings, and they can bring that creaminess to a dessert that butter and other traditional ingredients can bring.
Okay, that sounds delicious. Mm-hmm. So one thing that people may be hearing you say and feeling confused by is I think that it's a big misconception that paleo and primal is just eating heaps and heaps of meat. Right. But you're saying these are vegetarian or mostly vegetarian recipes, or at least you follow a mostly vegetarian plan yourself. So do you want to bust that myth? Because I feel like I spent some time doing that as well. I'm like, you can be vegan and paleo, but it's just hard. But yeah, you want to go ahead and shed some light on that topic?
Absolutely. So paleo, primal. The whole concept is that we eat the way our ancestors ate. We hunted and we gathered. We didn't always have meat, though. And I think that's the big misconception where paleo went really like meat-centric.
Right.
But that's not how our ancestors ate. They didn't always have meat 3 times a day. They might have meat like, I don't know, like they're going for the kill and they have enough meat for like a month, and then they don't have meat for another, few months. So I think that's where we started to go off the rails. And really when in paleo, we're like, oh, well, you don't have carbs and you don't have legumes, you don't have grains, because that was after agriculture. So what do you eat then? You eat more meat. Well, actually, you can have your diet be mostly made up of vegetables and nuts and seeds. And actually, you do get protein from vegetables, and you obviously get protein from nuts and seeds, and then the odd legume and maybe like super grain like quinoa here and there. So that's where you can absolutely be paleo without having to eat any meat. Because it really should, I don't want to use the word shouldn't. That's like a dirty word. It doesn't have to be heavy on the meat.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think even just thinking of, does it, well, I usually use the term, did it have a mom or come from the ground? And that makes it okay. But I guess you can eliminate the mom thing completely and still have food that came from the ground. Even, I think not completely industrialized regular grains are okay as long as it's high quality and not 6 to 12 servings per se.
Right.
Day, the crazy amounts of it. But yeah, I think it's interesting because so many people, like I said, think that you're just eating piles of bacon and with butter on top of it or something.
Which some people may be, and all the power to them. If your stomach can handle that and you are like in the best shape and energy of your life, cool. But don't think that that's true.
Yeah, probably not in most cases. So you mentioned some different bold moves in your story, moving to a new country, completely flip-flopping careers a couple times. What would you say the scariest thing you've ever done has been?
Besides giving birth,
you can include giving birth.
Well, I think that's like for moms, that's like a universal thing. I think the scariest thing for me was going to law school in Australia and then deciding that I didn't like law school and then leaving.
Have you even mentioned that yet?
No.
I was like, did I zone out for a minute? I don't remember that as part of your story.
No, I took us down a rabbit hole of the Twilight Zone that is my life. From the very first episode of Columbo and Diagnosis Murder that I watched when I was 5 or 6, I was like, I want to be a lawyer. And for my whole life, I wanted to be a lawyer. And everything I did was to get to that goal. And I ended up, I'm not like, this is not self-deprecating, I promise. I'm not naturally smart. I have to study hard. So I was a straight A student, but I had to like read 7 times instead of 1 time a sentence just to understand it. And so the SATs, the LSATs, all of those standardized tests did not work well for me. So for law school, I found a school in Australia that didn't require me to sit for the LSAT.
Okay.
And so I went, and I'd never been to Australia before. I lived in Montreal, so this was 5 hours to Vancouver, 5 hours to Hawaii, 14 hours to Brisbane, to Sydney, and another 2 hours to Brisbane, where I went to law school. So I was literally going to the other side of the world to pursue this goal, which was absolutely terrifying. I still have a visceral reaction in my body. And going to a school I had never seen before and a place I'd never seen. So that was one of the scariest things I've ever done. And then equally, if not more scary, was like after the first semester realizing, oh my God, if I become a lawyer, and this is for me. So if you are a lawyer, all the power to you and you're happy, I'm so glad. It was not going to make me happy, and I knew it. And so I had to leave, which was like, my parents were like, what is wrong with you? They told all their friends they're going to have a daughter who's a lawyer. And it was like shattering all the expectations of everybody. And yeah, so that was the second hardest thing.
Okay, so how did you then decide to come back? Or how long were you there? Like, where's the rest of that story go?
So that was in 2005. I stayed for 1 semester, which was about 4 months, and I came home for Christmas and told my parents I wasn't going back. And it was the dead of winter in Montreal, which is really cold and really depressing. So I was not sure that I had made the right decision, but there I was. And it was just like, I just got back from this conference with Martha Beck and Elizabeth Gilbert this weekend, and they talk about magic and like listening to your voice that's always talking to you. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we're always all tapped into it, but I think whenever we make these bold moves, it's that voice inside that comes up and goes, nope, or yep. And you're like, where did that come from? And you just listen. And that's what happened with leaving law school. It was just like, absolutely not. Like my body was not going to allow that. And so when I was now back living with my parents in the basement, after being a law school failure, I decided I had to do something. So I went into public relations and I got a certificate in public relations, and then got recruited out of a yoga class to start working for Lululemon. Okay. So it was like kismet, right? Like I knew that I shouldn't do that. I had no idea what I should do instead, but I just started following the breadcrumbs that the magic of my life was leaving for me. And then I ended up at Lululemon.
That's amazing. So if somebody else was considering like a huge career change or something like that, what advice would you give them, since you can kind of write the book on that too?
If you're considering a huge career change, if you know what you want to do, just go ahead. If you know that what you're doing is not right for you, but you're not sure where to go, actually in both cases, I would just say spend some time in meditation. Even if you don't believe in meditation, sit on your bed, sit on your couch, and ask the question, what should I do now? And then meditate for honestly 20 to 30 minutes at least, if you can stand it. Mm-hmm. And if the answer doesn't come in that meditation, do it again and do it again and do it again every day until you get an answer. And then I would say, pay attention to the universe. It's always speaking to you. Those signs, like when you think about, oh, I should really call so-and-so, and all of a sudden they call, that's not a coincidence. And if you just tune into those parts of your life, it will guide you. So that's what I would say, is basically believe in magic and try to cultivate it so that you can quiet your very opinionated and very noisy mind to listen to what you truly do want to do moving forward.
I think that's fantastic advice. Now, on the advice tip, I would like to know also how you would recommend people pushing past fear in general.
Know that it's not going to go away. It's like that quote, courage is not the absence of fear. It is it's to act in the face of to act anyway. Okay. So in the face of fear, it's not going to go away, but maybe what you could do is, I have a really great tribe of people who support me. So create your tribe of people who are going to support you, who you can call when you're like, oh my God, I made this huge decision and I feel like I'm failing. So that they can be like, no, you're not. And they can remind you of all the reasons why you did it and all the reasons why you're great. Mm-hmm. And set that up also thinking of in support system, like things that make you happy, that bring you absolute joy, like listening to music and laying on your bed, or going for a walk, or going to the pool, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And if you can just surround yourself with those supports, then the fear will be there, but it won't have the final say.
I love that. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great reminder that it's not going to go away. And I'm sure the more, part of the reason for the podcast is the more bold moves you make, even if they're smaller ones, the more confidence you'll get. And that almost implies that at some point you're not going to ever worry about making another bold move. But I think it's important to also acknowledge that actually that's not true. You'll probably be scared all the time. You just get used to it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And actually I have this amazing yoga teacher here in Malibu who's I go to her classes, not so much for the yoga, which is fabulous, but because her messages, I'm always like, oh my God, it's like she's speaking to my soul. And in the last class, she said, micro movements over time bring massive change.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, it's true. And she said it as she was leading us into this pose that we've done a million times, but it's say warrior one. Okay. You know warrior one.
Right.
But she had us do this adjustment, this micro adjustment, where she had us imagine with our hands up in the air that there were two ropes coming down from the ceiling and that we were grabbing the ropes. She's like, don't move anything. Just imagine that you're grabbing the ropes and you feel this micro movement in your shoulders and in your arms. And over time, as you practice that micro movement, you will get to that pose naturally and on its own, which is a huge change from where you are now. And the same is true in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of my favorite personal development books is The Compound Effect. And that, and I think The Slight Edge is a different author, but the same idea that if, the whole save 1 penny today, 2 pennies tomorrow, and you'll have a lot more money than if you take a bunch at, it's not one big thing, but.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of books, of course, yours would be a recommendation, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that. But then, additionally, any other books that you have that you would like to share that you think would be good required reading for life, whether it's for an entertainment purpose or education, personal development, any favorites you have?
Sure. Well, my favorite is Shantaram. Have you heard of Shantaram?
No.
I just have to Google the author because I really should know that. I'm terrible with authors, but I'm really good with book names.
Okay.
Shantaram is by Gregory David Roberts. It is, I can't even say enough about it. It is absolutely fabulous. The writing is amazing, and you will find inspiration from it.
Is this the guy who went to India and wrote about his crazy experience? Okay, I have heard of it. When you said it, I was thinking of that as a author name, but then as you said that it was the name of the book.
Yes.
Someone did recommend that to me a couple weeks ago, actually, and I haven't gotten to it yet.
You have to. It is. It's one of those books that I'm sad that I read it because now I don't get to experience it again for the first time.
Okay, I know exactly what you mean by that, and okay, that's a great endorsement.
Mm-hmm. And it's long, and you will be grateful that it's long because you will not want it to end.
Okay.
It is fabulous, and it's entertaining. It's like, yes, a guy from Australia escapes from prison to the slums of Mumbai, and it's about his experience. It is off the charts great. So that I would recommend as a life book. Okay. And then I'm actually right now, I'm in the reading 2 different books. One is Martha Beck, Finding Your North Star.
Okay.
And it's basically like a self-help book to help you figure out what you want your next move to be. Not from this part, your head, that's telling you, well, I need to pay the bills and I need to, no, not from that part, from the part in your soul, the little kid who wants to be enchanted. And so that's fabulous. And then I'm also reading a book called Quiet by Susan Cain, which is about introverts.
Okay.
And if you, in making bold moves, I think for somebody who identifies as an introvert, it can be really scary because it doesn't feel like you can make a bold move as an introvert. And an introvert is essentially somebody who gets their energy from going in.
Yes.
Right? Versus an extrovert who gets their energy from going out.
Right.
And to be clear, you can be an introvert who is social.
Right, and outgoing. I am a self-described outgoing introvert.
Same here.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, but to read the book and to read the science behind it is really fascinating. And it actually, in reading it, helped me, it was like reading about my childhood and going, oh, okay, so I wasn't weird and boring. I was just an introvert, Right. So that's great too. So that was 3 recommendations. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't put a number on it, so it was as many as you wanted to share. You didn't take the opportunity to plug your book, though, so I would like to hear about that.
Right. Okay. As a Canadian, I am actually very bad at plugging my own. So this is
in LA for 10 years. You had to have learned something.
No, I don't think that part of me will ever break. I really like to put the spotlight on other people. Even at my wedding, like I had my sister and my aunt and my brother as bridesmaids, and he was a groomsman for me. And I had them wear white, and my mother was like, you can't have them wear white. You're the bride. I'm like, first of all, people know I'm the bride, whether I'm wearing white or not, or the only one. And second of all, I don't want to be the center of attention. So it's all good. But here it is. This is the Accidental Paleo, and this is a labor of love. So this book is, you'll actually read in the introduction, and I'm so pleased with how many people have read the introduction and reached out to me to say how much they loved it, because it is the story of how food transformed my life, and how literally transformed my life, and how transformative I think it can be for everybody. And this book is like the culmination of my journey from Nutella eating, pizza loving, hot dogs, hamburgers, to mostly plant-based, really healthy, won't touch any processed food. And, all the steps in between. So all of the recipes come from that kind of palate, from somebody who would not eat a green vegetable until I was 25, unless it was smothered. I'm not even kidding. Unless it was smothered in some like terrible bottled sauce from the grocery store. Yeah.
I can definitely identify with a lot of that. When I was growing up, my vegetables were corn and potatoes. So
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't count, but
They can count, but not if they're the staple.
Right, exactly. So that's awesome. So you have the introduction, and then the rest is recipes?
The rest is all recipes. We've got breakfast, snacks, lunches and dinners, and of course desserts, which are lovely and amazing. And they're all amazing to anybody who has a sweet tooth, but they're also so healthy that my daughter is 2. She's never had any refined sugar ever, because I'm trying to set her up differently.
Yeah.
Even birthday cakes. My friends at her first and second parties are like, "You're not having a birthday cake?" I was like, "Here is a cashew, refined sugar-free birthday cake. That is good enough." And I have no problem feeding that to her. I've got 2 recipes for that in the book, because there's no refined sugar in it, and it's delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you going to handle when she goes to friends' house and stuff? This is something my husband and I have talked about for when we eventually have kids, and how we're going to try to make them not hate us for not wanting those things.
Right. Well, so I actually went to culinary school with this girl whose parents were vegan, and she was like, she's like a huge carnivore now, because she's like, my parents kept it away from me. So the way that I handle it is, I want to educate her, and I want to educate her verbally when she can understand, but also physically and viscerally right now. So I don't keep her away from food that is sweet. I give her fruit. She actually doesn't like fruit. She likes raisins, and she likes bananas, and sometimes blueberries and raspberries, but she really actually prefers, like, if I give her a squeeze pack, which I started doing when we had to go on a trip last minute, otherwise I make all of her food. If the squeeze pack has anything other than vegetables in it, she won't eat it. So she's really into pureed vegetables. But I give her the cake, like there are 2 cheesecakes in this book. I give those to her. And when I think she can handle dark chocolate, and meaning when I think I can handle her having the energy from all the dark chocolate, I let her have that too. And so my hope in doing that is that when she goes to her friends' houses and there is fast food, and there is, a boxed birthday cake that's full of sugar, she will try it and go, "Ooh, I don't like this. This doesn't taste like the dessert or the food that I'm used to," and then put it back down and walk away. That's my hope. Yeah. I hope.
I guess I feel the same way, and it's funny because I have the same thing. I even have a blog post about how I used to just eat ridiculously terrible things, and my husband always says it's a miracle that I was never obese, because like it's alarming. And I now am the same way, where if I have something that I would have devoured before, I have one bite and I'm like, oh, this is too sweet, or it doesn't even have real flavor, all I taste is sugar. And so I agree with hopefully being able to instill that. We have a friend who's a doctor for my husband's old basketball team, and he said that his daughter called one day, she was like 15 or something, and with friends, and they were about to go through the drive-thru at McDonald's, and she was like, I don't know what to do. What should I order? Like, she had never had McDonald's at 15, and I'm like, that's amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah, and I think you can't control many things as a parent, and all you can do is teach them what you know, give them really good tools, and hope for the best. And that's it. It's all you can do.
Yeah.
So I hope that my daughter gets to that point at 15 years old where she doesn't know what to order at McDonald's. I will pray for that. But if that doesn't happen, then I'll know I did everything I could.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that sounds great. I'm glad there's desserts too. It sounds like a great overall book. So where can we find the book? Where can we find you online if we want to follow you on social media or your website? Where is all of that located?
So the book you can get, whether you're listening in Canada or the States, on Amazon.com or .ca, and in Canada it's at Indigo Books. That's the easiest place. Go to Amazon, The Accidental Paleo, and it will be in there. I mostly use Instagram, and Lauren Lobley is my name. Lobley is how you spell my last name, and Lauren is Lauren. I do have a Facebook page for The Accidental Paleo. I have a food blog called Delectable You, and that's delectableyou.com, and that's where I post every week. There's a new recipe, and there is a new cooking video up there that is linked to my YouTube channel, which is also Lauren Lobley. So I like to demonstrate my recipes because sometimes it's like, especially with plant-based things, it can be a little bit harder to be like, wait, what did she say? So I just demonstrate it. Okay. So you can go on YouTube and find me at Lauren Lobley. You can go on Instagram with the same name, and delectableyou.com is my website.
Okay, fabulous. I'll make sure all of that, plus links to your book and the book recommendations that you gave, are in the show notes in case anyone's listening while they drive or something. They can go back to them and find them easily.
Awesome.
Yes. So you've given some good book recommendations and some advice on pushing past fear, starting new careers. Do you have any general advice that you would like to share? Maybe something you've learned recently, something you wish you'd learned a long time ago, something you wish everyone knew?
Yes, and this is a great question, especially considering I just spent the weekend with Elizabeth Gilbert and Martha Beck.
That was a benefit to
yes. I did not plan that. There are so many things that I came away with from the weekend. The biggest thing, and I think this is important for anybody who's listening to this podcast, I'm assuming it's a high achiever, because we make bold moves. We're usually high achievers, and the message I got from this weekend was rest is the way. You play until you get tired, and then you rest, and then you rest until you want to play again. Working harder is not going to be the way to get what you want. And that can be really hard, especially for somebody like me who's like, but there's so many things to do. How am I supposed to do it all? And I have been practicing it. I've only been home for 2 days. And yesterday, usually my daughter goes down for a nap, and I have 2 to 3 hours to get my work done really fast until she wakes up. And then it's like, there's no hope after that to get anything done. And I was like, no, you know what? I'm going to meditate and do breath work for an hour and 15 minutes. And I was terrified. And I did it, and I fell asleep. And I was like, oh my God, my body really needed this rest. Cool. Yeah. And I didn't get any work done, which felt really hard and also really great. And then today I did the same thing, and I meditated for half an hour, and I ended up getting done in like half an hour after that meditation, what probably would have taken me 3 hours to do, because I created the space for it to be more productive. Yeah. So I would say just try it on. Just try the whole rest play thing and for a week and see if it makes you more productive. I have a feeling that it will.
Interesting. So for the type A person who maybe hasn't tried or hasn't felt successful with meditation, what do you recommend as far as the rest aspect? And then with the play aspect, you know, so many of us, it sounds like you included, can be in such a grinded out kind of mode. Yeah. How do you define, I guess, both of those? So with the rest part of it, I would say, and I'm one of them, I'm like, you want me to sit and do what now for nothing? Like, do nothing like that? No. So what can you sit and do? Can you sit and, if you're near a lake, can you sit and stare at the lake? Can you
put on some noise canceling headphones and put on Spotify and find like a meditation station or even a station of music that you like Jack Johnson or Ben Harper or something, and sit there and just listen to music and do nothing else. No multitasking, no doing more than one thing, listening to music or watching the lake. Or can you sit and pick up one of the books that I just recommended or one that's on your table, set your timer for half an hour and just read instead of doing the dishes, writing that blog post, writing that next chapter in the book, cooking dinner. Kids will have cereal for dinner. It's fine. They'll survive.
Cereal from the paleo chick.
Totally. Paleo cereal. But even if it's not, like, we have to let things go.
Right.
You know, you're not going to let them go forever. Just let them go for that moment. So that's what I would suggest from a type A person to another type A person. Just find some way that allows you to sit.
Okay.
Not do anything except for read, sit. Oprah and Deepak Chopra have these 21-day meditations, and they're guided. So it's like that nervous Nelly multitasker in you can be like, okay, they're going to time it for me. They're going to lead me through it. I don't have to think about anything. Okay, I can do this. Right. So that's another recommendation. And then for play, think of, if you're not sure, if you're like, I don't know how to play. Okay. What did you used to do when you were a kid? Did you go to the pool? Did you blow bubbles? Did you play hopscotch? Like, what did you do as a kid? And do that. I know that sounds crazy, and probably people are like, I'm not going to play hopscotch, you crazy woman. Why not? It gave your kid, when you were a kid, it gave you immense joy. What makes you think it's not going to give you joy now? You haven't given it the opportunity. So see if you go play hopscotch or whatever it is, and maybe you're like, no, this isn't doing it, but you know what? I want an ice cream cone. Great. Go get an ice cream cone. Or you know what? I want to go hiking. Great. Go hiking. Like, just to circle back to that beginning, listen to that inner voice inside you that you have been quieting down because you think you have to do in order to become more. You already are what you're going to become. You just have to, like, a diamond is already there. You just have to give it the opportunity to come out. That's what I would say.
Okay. So in the play and rest cycle you shared, though, there is no work. So how are you getting things done if you're not a millionaire that can just relax and rest and play until they feel like relaxing? Because that sounds like the ideal life. But
right. Well, so today my meditation was 30 minutes, and that was enough for me. And I did it before I had to get my work done. So some days, I would just say, some days all it's going to take is 20 or 30 minutes. You haven't tried it yet, so you don't know if, like, you don't know how long it's going to take. It might take 2 hours someday, and you might not get your work done someday. But I have a 2-year-old, and my job is to take care of her most of the time. I basically only get 2 or 3 hours of work time a day, unless I have a babysitter. And I'm taking now some of that time to do these exercises, to rest and to play, and it's already making me more productive. So I would say, don't worry, you're gonna get the work done. But if you give yourself a break and you give yourself that space, even if it's for like 20 or 30 minutes, it might just make all the work stuff easier.
Got it. Okay.
Does that make sense? And I totally understand the question, because, and they even addressed that this weekend. They're like, they had us write a letter. Elizabeth Gilbert, she said, write a letter to your enchantment, which is that part of you, that kid part of you. That's like, I love it when we go for walks. I hate it when we have to pay bills and, pay taxes.
Sure.
You write a letter to that enchantment. And of everybody who read their letters out, she said, now, can you please tell me, do any of those letters require you to be a millionaire to do the things on them? And not a single person could raise their hands and say that they did.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying scrap your work day, play hooky, don't like quit your job. No, but take like an hour or two instead of watching TV or instead of doing extra research on something. Just be okay with something being good enough for that day,
Yeah.
and let your inner child have some fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
So this kind of goes along the line of that with thinking of your inner child, and as well as along with one of the books you said you're reading now. But I'm wondering if you know what your purpose is, and if so, what it is, or your purpose right now, since for some people that's fluid.
Right. So I'm laughing because at this weekend we learned about purpose, and I used to think my purpose is to make healthy food taste good. My purpose is to be a great mother. My purpose is to write another 10 cookbooks and become a New York Times bestselling cookbook author and a Food Network star of my own vegan, gluten-free cooking show. Like, okay, great. But what Elizabeth Gilbert told us is actually, here's the thing. Your purpose, and this is going to sound so new agey and like, oh, really? Your purpose is to be loved and to know that you are loved. That's your purpose. Your activity is, insert that here. Your purpose is to know that you are loved. Your activity is to be a lawyer, is to have an awesome podcast, is to be an amazing motivational speaker, is to be the author of cookbooks. And I was like, that is just so lovely, because how much pressure do we put on ourselves to define what our purpose is? And then, so then when we're not doing it, we're like, oh my God, I have to get back to work. When really, if your purpose can just be to know that you're loved, well, that takes the pressure off. And then your activity can change as it needs to change.
Ah, interesting.
You know?
That does sound lovely. I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it more.
I know.
But.
I know. It's kind of like mind-blowing and like too simple, and it doesn't suit the type A personality. I know. I probably wouldn't have even said it last week. There's no way, actually, I would have said that. But I do believe it after that weekend and doing a few of those exercises. I really do believe that.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
All right. So my last question is my favorite one to ask. And it's funny because you sort of touched on it a little bit, or at least the idea of it previously. But if 8-year-old Lauren had a crystal ball and could look at Lauren today, despite maybe, not being a lawyer or living the Columbo life or whatever, and all of the different, journeys you took on the way to where you are right now, as well as, of course, the easily foreseeable future. You probably know what you're doing the next couple of weeks, most likely. On a scale of 1 to 11, how excited would little Lauren be to be where you are now?
Little Lauren had a lot of pressure and personal responsibility on her shoulders and was never actually little.
Okay.
So I think I've actually reversed my roles. I think I'm more of a little kid now than I was when I actually know that, than when I was a little kid.
I can identify with that.
Yeah. When I wanted to grow up the whole time I was a kid, and I wanted to be sitting with the adults, and I hated the kids table, and I hated being called young. And I was way more interested in adult conversation. So I know this is throwing a wrench in your pile. 8-year-old Lauren would probably be a little appalled that I wasn't a lawyer or success as she had defined it. So I will say, from a hypothetical 8-year-old Lauren who was actually a little kid, that she would say an 11.
Okay.
Yeah. But not from the real Lauren.
What would the real one say? I've never had anyone say that, but I'm super interested in it. I'm glad that hypothetical Lauren would.
Yeah, hypothetical Lauren is like, yes. Little Lauren would probably be like, she'd probably say like a 7 or an 8.
Okay.
She'd give higher marks because, oh my God, you're living by the beach in Malibu.
Yeah.
With a hunky husband and a beautiful daughter. But she would give me deductions for not being a successful lawyer.
Okay. She's a tough to please customer.
She really was. She really was. It's so sad, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you're doing better now, playing more now.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That's probably why this weekend I was like, play what? Yes. Okay, sure. It only took 35 years to figure that out. Yes, I can.
Less playing time.
Yes. Yes. And my 2-year-old is awake from her nap, and I'm going to either take her to the beach or take her to the park.
That sounds incredible.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I will let you go do that because that sounds amazing. But thank you so much for everything that you've shared. And if I'm not mistaken, a lucky winner can get a copy of your cookbook as well as a Primal Kitchen gift pack. Was that what we agreed on?
Yep.
Awesome. So
yeah.
thank you for that as well.
Of course. Just let me know who to send it to.
I will. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to check out all of your stuff online as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
All right, what a journey she's been on. I'm excited to see where she is headed as well. I hope you liked all of the twists and turns and that I didn't give too much away in my intro, but I just thought it was so inspiring and interesting, fascinating that she has been in so many different directions and seems to be on a great path. So really excited to hear where she's headed and super inspired as a fellow type A that historically, especially in childhood, hasn't really necessarily been fantastic at playing and resting, to know that there is hope for me. And I know that my husband would be really excited about that as well. Speaking of husbands, in a crazy twist turn of events, when I was looking more closely at Lauren's Instagram profile after our interview, I discovered that I have actually done yoga with her husband many times. However, not in person quite yet. I might make the drive up to Malibu to do so, but he's from the P90X3 and other Beachbody yoga videos. So tiny, tiny world that he's been on my TV screen probably hundreds of times by now. Anyway, the primal world is a small world, the paleo world, and so that is probably part of why we're connected. And you already know that you can be both paleo and vegetarian, which is a surprise to many, but you may be interested in winning Lauren's cookbook or the primal goodies that the people at Primal Kitchen were so generous to donate. And if you are interested in that or interested in checking out links to Lauren's book, the recommendations she made for other books, as well as her website and social media, you would have to go to the show notes at www.mandiem.com/episode 159, since this is the 159th episode. And that is where you can find all of that and connect with Lauren, as well as enter to win those fabulous prizes. And I wish you good luck on that. I have some more requests for you aside from encouraging you to enter those challenges. One of them is to share this with as many people as possible. I know that there are so many people who could use these positive messages of reassurance and motivation. So hit the share button, send this to your friends, family, following, all of the above. That would be fantastic. I'd also love it if you subscribed. There's of course a fantastic challenge with a couple options coming for you this Friday from Lauren, so you don't want to miss that. If you subscribe, you'll have it automatically downloaded or get a notification at least that it exists so that you don't forget in this busy world. So I would really love it if you did that. And while you're in iTunes subscribing already, it would mean the world to me if you could give me a 5-star review, only if you're being honest, or I guess any type of review, but I hope it's a positive one, because that will help iTunes suggest this podcast to other people with these interests, and we can help as many people as possible get closer and closer to their dreams. If you are someone who has gotten closer and closer to your dreams or is truly living the dream, I'd love it if you headed over to www.mandiem.com/guest and filled out the form to be on the podcast, because I would love to share your amazing story with my equally amazing listeners. All right, that is all for now. Thank you so much for listening. As always, be bold and have a sparkly day. Bye-bye.